What if you were given absolute power over someone else? Would you be a benevolent leader or a cruel tyrant? In 1971, a psychologist named Philip Zimbardo decided to find out. He set up a fascinating, yet terrifying, study known as the Stanford Prison Experiment. The idea was simple: create a simulated prison in the basement of Stanford University's psychology building. 24 mentally and physically healthy male college students were selected from a pool of volunteers. They were randomly assigned to one of two roles, either a prisoner or a guard. The participants were paid $15 a day to participate in what was supposed to be a 2-week study on the psychological effects of prison life. The prisoners were unexpectedly arrested at their homes by real police officers. They were charged with a felony, read their rights, handcuffed, and driven to the mock prison. This wasn't just a game, it was designed to feel incredibly real from the very beginning. The level of detail was meant to strip away their individual identities and immerse them in their new roles. Upon arrival, the prisoners were stripped, deloused, and given a smock-like uniform with an identification number. They wore a heavy chain on one ankle and a cap made from a nylon stocking to simulate a shaved head. From that moment on, they were no longer students with names, they were just numbers. This process of de-individuation was a key part of the experiment's design. The guards were given their own uniforms, khaki shirts and pants, along with reflective sunglasses to prevent eye contact. They were also given a wooden baton, not for physical punishment, but as a symbol of their power. Zimbardo instructed them to maintain law and order within the prison. He told them they could do almost anything to maintain control, short of inflicting physical harm. What happened next was shocking. Within a single day, the roles started to consume the participants. The guards began to embrace their newfound authority with unsettling enthusiasm. They devised cruel and psychologically damaging forms of punishment. They would wake the prisoners up in the middle of the night for counts, forcing them to recite their numbers over and over. Push-ups became a common form of punishment. At first, it was for minor infractions, but soon, guards would force prisoners to do them just to assert their dominance. The prisoners, in turn, began to show signs of extreme stress and helplessness. On the second day, they staged a rebellion, barricading themselves in their cells and refusing to obey the guards' orders. The guards responded with escalating force. They used a fire extinguisher to spray the prisoners, broke into the cells, stripped the prisoners, and took away their beds. The ringleaders of the rebellion were put into solitary confinement, a small, dark closet. The guards began to use psychological tactics, turning the prisoners against each other. They created a privileged cell for prisoners who were more obedient, giving them better food and their beds back. This sowed distrust and broke the solidarity that had formed among the prisoners. The situation deteriorated rapidly. The guards became more sadistic in their behavior, seeming to enjoy the power they held. They denied prisoners basic rights, like using the toilet, forcing them to use buckets in their cells. The basement of the psychology building no longer felt like a university. It had transformed into a place of genuine suffering and psychological torment. One prisoner began to suffer from an acute emotional disturbance. He was crying, screaming, and showing signs of a breakdown. Initially, Zimbardo and his team believed he was faking it to get released. But his distress was real. After about 36 hours, they had to release him. The experiment was already proving to be far more intense than anyone had anticipated. Even Zimbardo himself became lost in his role. He wasn't just the lead researcher, he was the prison superintendent, and he began to think like one, prioritizing the security of his prison over the well-being of the students. The guards continued their abuse, often during the night when they thought the researchers weren't watching. They subjected the prisoners to humiliating tasks and games designed to degrade them. The prisoners became increasingly passive and depressed. They accepted the guards' authority and showed signs of learned helplessness, believing they had no way out of the situation. The line between the experiment and reality had become dangerously blurred for everyone involved. The ordinary, healthy students had transformed into brutal guards and broken prisoners. The turning point came when Christina Maslach, a graduate student and Zimbardo's future wife, visited the prison. She was horrified by what she saw. She saw the guards leading the prisoners, with bags over their heads, on a toilet run. She was the first outsider to challenge the morality of what was happening. She confronted Zimbardo, arguing that he had a responsibility to stop the suffering he was causing. Her perspective was crucial because everyone else had become too deeply involved to see the experiment for what it was. Because of her strong objections, Zimbardo made the decision to terminate the experiment. It was ended after only 6 days, far short of the planned 2 weeks. The results were terrifying. The experiment demonstrated how powerful situations can be in shaping human behavior. Good people, placed in a toxic environment, can be capable of doing terrible things. The guards weren't inherently sadistic individuals, they were ordinary students who were given power without accountability. The prisoners weren't naturally submissive, they were put in a situation that stripped them of their identity and control. The Stanford prison experiment teaches us about the psychology of evil. It suggests that evil is not just about a few bad apples, it's often the barrel, the system itself, that is bad. The study has faced criticism over the years for its ethical issues and methodological flaws. Critics argue that the guards were coached to be tough and that the participants were simply acting out the roles they believed were expected of them. However, its impact remains undeniable. It serves as a powerful cautionary tale about the abuse of power and the ease with which we can become dehumanized by our circumstances. It forces us to ask difficult questions about ourselves. How would we have acted in that basement? Would we have been a compassionate guard, a rebellious prisoner, or would we, too, have succumbed to our roles? The lessons from that basement in 1971 are still relevant today, reminding us to always be critical of authority and to protect the humanity of others, and ourselves. Thank you for watching. For more deep dives into the fascinating and sometimes dark corners of history and psychology, make sure to subscribe to Facts Repo.